A funeral and the DNC Convention. Just about the same thing, isn't it? Well, I've got lots of stuff to share with you as usual, and I hope you'll stick around with me, and I'll be right back. Hey everybody, this is Deb with Truthification Chronicles, and let's get started because we've got several things we're going to go through today. First of all, I'm going to start with this Daily Mail on President Trump's brother's funeral. Very interesting. This was the first White House funeral since JFK, and it's really kind of odd throughout this entire article. There's many references to assassination. I just thought it was kind of creepy on that. But yeah, they had this private funeral on Friday, and I'm recording this Friday night. So it was at the White House, and pretty much the whole Trump family was there. It says somewhere in here that there were 200 invited, about that many, and so pretty much everybody was there. And they have some pictures down here, which is really nice, and I don't know why they always have to focus on what the First Lady is wearing, and sometimes they take a little extra, writer's liberty here to be able to say some things, but it must have been a very tough time. And frankly, folks, I don't know how I would handle it. It's bad enough that you lose your favorite brother. Well, and it was his only brother at this point, since his other one passed away a long time ago. You got to do it so publicly. I mean, it's one thing to grieve, but it's another thing when you know there are cameras on you constantly. And so I don't believe there were cameras in the actual funeral service, but they did get the coffin being taken out to the hearse, and he looked like it was a tough time, and Melania was there next to him and everything. So some nice pictures here that you can look through, but it's a funeral. Who looks good at a funeral, right? So I'll leave this down below. You can read through it if you want to and look at the rest of the pictures. But I think it's really important for us to keep President Trump in our prayers. I just hope that his brother's death was genuinely organic, that it was just because of those falls and everything and the brain bleeds. This is not a game we're playing, and sometimes they get rough. So I'm just hoping that was not the cause of it. And a lot of people were talking about why he had the funeral there at the White House. Well, let me show you this. And so this is Jennifer Jacobs. She is senior White House reporter for Bloomberg News. So, of course, she's not a fan of Trump's, that's for sure. Well, then she posts this, and it's just so frustrating to read through these because these people are so sick. Somebody loses their brother, and you're making comments about it like, well, he's afraid to go to unfamiliar places like inside churches. He probably didn't want to have to deal with all the stupid paparazzi that, little fawning reporters that are out there. So he kept it at the White House. That way he was sure that it was going to be a private affair. It was disgusting reading through some of these because these people have no conscience. They really don't. And he's too lazy to go to his brother's funeral. No, he had it at the White House, again, because it was more under his control to be able to keep out the looky-loos and all the reporters that just want to take jabs at him. But it also was a chance for him to honor his brother because his brother was very proud of him being president. Hey, if one of my brothers became president of the United States, I'd be pretty darn proud too. So he was very proud of him, and the biggest honor President Trump could give him was to have his funeral there at the White House. I mean, that would be tremendous. So that's what he did. And I think that's why he did it there. But of course, they can't imagine that President Trump would do anything genuinely nice. And of course, they've got to bring this back up, which they never did understand why she did that. But, it was kind of giving the middle finger to the fake news, which they're kind of perpetuating here. And, and used it as a photo op. Okay, now here's the deal. The White House pool of reporters was just called together at the North Portico steps. Okay, now imagine this. If they would not have been invited, can you imagine how angry and hateful and spiteful they would have made this whole thing? Because they weren't allowed to be there? You know, there's no winning with these people. There is no winning. So this is just a disgusting thread of people that are so full of hate that they can't just lay it aside for a little while. But that's the way it works these days. Well, anyway, I wanted to show you some things about the DNC, and it was this right here. This is the Neilsen ratings for 4 nights of DNC's Got Talent. I like the way he said that. Compared to last 3 conventions. This is the same time slot, 10 to 11. I don't know if that's 10 to 11 like Eastern time. Probably, because that'd be what? 10 Eastern would be 9 Central, 8 Mountain, and 7 Pacific. So probably that would be the highest point, Pacific, you know. That'd be getting California in there. So anyway, this is what they had. Look at this. Night 1, 18 million. But look, the change is a negative 27 from the prior year. I mean, that's just, look at this, negative 25. This was probably the best night 3, and I think that's when Obama spoke. But other than that, and even Joe Biden's was on night 4. It was still negative 22. So it was way down. Way down. Now tell me that they aren't in trouble. You know, these polls are so wrong. They really, really are. Well, I wanted to show you this because if you've not been paying attention during the day, they've been having, you know, they had all these people that were representing the DNC and, you know, just kind of not the upper level people, but they had others that were speaking. And some of them were not nice people, like this one here, because she was a convicted murderer and she did not so nice things with pliers. And so there she is. And yeah, she was a convicted murderer and kidnapper implicated in a gruesome 1985 torture and killing case, was featured as a criminal justice reform advocate. Oh, this is the people that they have speaking. And some of them, I'm telling you, I saw clips of a few of them. Oh my goodness. They just, I don't know. It's so crazy. This is the lady right here, Donna Hilton. So incredibly honored and humble to have been asked to participate in the preamble of the Constitution for the DNC tonight. With deep thought, I accepted this opportunity to represent the millions of Americans who have been left out and shut out. Yeah, no, you don't represent me, that's for sure. And I feel like I've been shut out, especially during Obama. Oh man, those 8 years were the longest 8 years of my life. Oh, so anyway, yeah, they kidnapped this guy, held him for $435,000 ransom for about 2 weeks before murdering him. Why would you put somebody like that in there? Why is she out of jail? I just don't even know. Why is this woman out of jail? So anyway, I'll leave this down below and you can read the whole thing yourself. It's just a very sad tale. Very, very sad. Well, this is some more about the Democrats. And there are a lot of CIA guys who are running as Democrats. Now, a lot of you already know that in 2018, there were a big bunch of them. A large group of former military intelligence operatives entered capitalist politics as candidates seeking the Democratic Party nomination in 50 congressional seats. Nearly half the seats where the Democrats were targeting Republican incumbents or open seats created by Republican retirees. Some 30 of these candidates won primary contests and became the Democratic candidates in the November 2018 election, and 11 of them won the general election, more than one quarter of the 40 previously Republican-held seats captured by the Democrats as they took control of the House of Representatives. Now, let that sink in. These are former CIA people. Does the name John Brennan ring a bell? Yeah, these were Brennan's minions. And so they went in there, and their goal was to cause as much trouble as possible for Trump. And they've done a pretty good job, I think. Anyway, this article just makes you a little ticked at them. So there are more that are coming in this time. And that could be a problem. All right? So, but if you've been following Mr. 17, he mentioned the fifth column. Well, that's what those people are. They're the fifth column, the resistance in there. And this came out today. The Wall Street Journal had this list of Republican national security officers endorsing Biden. It's really something. This is basically every GOP luminary of the last 30 years saying enough to Trump. Stunning, really. No, this is the fifth column right here. And it shouldn't be surprising to you because remember, Obama really upped the number of people in the senior executive services, you know, the SES. Oh, when he came into office, I think there were about 1,000. When he left, there were 9,000, somewhere in that area. So he put a lot of operatives in there. And several members of Congress and others seem to believe that they had a big portion of Muslim Brotherhood people in there. So yeah, Well, check this out. Speaking of the Dems, they're just working overtime almost. Look at this. California pays stealth Democrat activists to manage nonpartisan mail-in ballots. Oh, gee, I'm sure that's going to be fair, isn't it? So, as the state of California prepares to send mail-in ballots to more than 20 million registered voters ahead of the general election, concerned citizens have raised questions about the role of hired experts with ties to partisan Democratic groups. One South Bay voter expressed her concern this week after she received a letter from the Democracy Fund. That's the name of the organization these people are with. Democracy Fund. Well, you know, the Democrats are the ones who are focusing so much on democracy, which seems highly ironic to me because true democracy is really the majority rules. And in all of these cases, it seems like the Democrats take small groups of people and make them rule. So like, you know, Black Lives Matter. Blacks in the whole of the population in the United States are not near as many as whites. So if you're going to have a true democracy, a pure democracy, that means that one person, one vote. So therefore, whites would always have more of a vote, more of a say in how the country's run. Which, you know, I agree with how we have our country set up right now. That was one of the reasons why there was the Electoral College, to keep the mob from ruling necessarily. And it was a matter of these two parts that were checks and balances so that little states didn't get run over by all the big states. And like I said, it really always surprises me when you're talking about the Democrats because they always seem to pick these minority groups, these little small groups of people, and they want to not just give them a voice, they want them to be the ones in power. And, you know, I have a problem with that because, you know, that's just not the way it's supposed to be run. But yes, we have a republic instead of a democracy, really. And that's why when you see this Democracy Fund, it was like, oh, well, that's pretty obviously Democrat, with details about her mail-in ballot. She got this letter. The Democracy Fund, hired by Secretary of State Alex Padilla in May to oversee the mail-in ballot program in California until January 15, 2021, purports to be a nonpartisan organization. Right. In California, the state's top election monitors for the general election includes this Jennifer Morrell, head of the Democracy Fund's election validation project since 2018, and Noah Prates, the former director of elections in Cook County, Illinois, which has a reputation of voter fraud going back decades. Boy, I know that. However, the Democracy Fund's primary sponsor, billionaire Pierre Omidyar, has given millions of dollars to leftist causes and media outlets and Democratic Party candidates and groups. Omidyar was one of the biggest donors to the Never Trump Political Action Committee during the 2016 election. Gee, I'm just so sure that's going to turn out well. And the funny thing is, see, once again, if they're not worried, if they believe those polls are accurate and that Joe Biden is in the lead, why are they doing so much to undermine the security of our election? Why are they cheating? Okay, I'm just going to say it out. Why are they doing so many things to cheat? You don't have to if you're in the lead. That's why I'm pretty sure they're not. Okay, this Breitbart article is on Ghislaine Maxwell. Guess what? Her nephew worked at Hillary Clinton's State Department. You can't make this stuff up. I mean, really, coincidence? I think not. Ghislaine Maxwell's nephew worked at the State Department under Hillary Clinton's tenure as Secretary of State, a spokesperson confirmed Friday. So, yeah, they're just like, all of these people are so interconnected. It's so incestuous. They're everywhere. They're all related to each other. It's crazy. So anyway, and there was an article, I'm not sure that I shared that with you, but Maxwell's very upset because she's being kept under suicide watch, and they're just watching her so closely. She just doesn't like that. It's like, woman, guess what happened to Epstein? Do you want that to happen? I think not. So she should be glad that they're protecting her, but, she's an arrogant thing. But they're not going to let anything happen to this one. If they do, oh man, their name's going to be big time mud. So anyway, this is a little disturbing to me. And this is, states have authority to fine or jail people who refuse coronavirus vaccine, attorney says. And the legal precedent goes back to 1905. Here's a clip if you want to watch that. But essentially, if you read through this Dov Fox, who is a law professor and the director of the Center for Health, Law Policy, and Bioethics at the University of San Diego, he says, yep, you can, because states can compel vaccinations in more or less intrusive ways. He said in an interview they can limit access to schools or services or jobs if people don't get vaccinated. They could force them to pay a fine or even lock them up in jail. Fox noted authorities in the United States have never attempted to jail people for refusing to vaccinate, but other countries like France have adopted the aggressive tactic. The legal precedent dates back to 1905. In a landmark U.S. Supreme Court case, Jacobson v. Massachusetts, the court ruled Massachusetts had the authority to fine people who refused vaccinations for smallpox. So, and that's why a lot of schools can require the kids to have vaccinations. And, you think about, well, what if there is like a religious opposition to it, if you have a religious belief that doesn't allow that? Well, states would need to allow exemptions for people with legitimate medical risks like pregnancy, but not exemptions on religious or philosophical grounds, he said. Religious exemptions are not constitutionally required by the First Amendment's free exercise clause, provided that the vaccine mandates don't single out religion. They're not motivated by a desire to interfere with it. In the workplace, private employers would have a lot of flexibility to require vaccinations and fire workers who refuse them for anything but legitimate medical concerns. Scared yet? Yeah. Yep. So we just need to make sure that President Trump gets in. He's reelected by just a huge landslide. Because if he's not, this is going to be our life right here. And Virginia Health Commissioner says he'll mandate a COVID-19 vaccine when it comes out. So, again, not looking forward to that. But if President Trump is reelected, that will be kept from happening. And I thought he already had an executive order on it, but he put out so many that I had trouble keeping up with them all. Yeah, how about the Minnesota farmers? Because they're getting pretty ticked with all these restrictions. So they had a little protest. Why not? You don't need to follow any rules if you're protesting, evidently, because protests are okay, right? Yeah. And so they're like mask mandates, church and school closures, and new restrictions placed on an upcoming rodeo. Oh, you're taking their rodeo away. Boy, out. That's not going to be it. And it says Trump 2020 and American flags were displayed during the large gathering in the city, which is well known for its MAGA water tower. So one farmer stated he missed a full day's work and traveled from out of town to be there. So it was pretty big. It was a pretty big deal. I mean, for them, it was. So, yeah, I think it's getting under people's skin. They're getting tired with this. At first, everybody followed the guidelines, fairly closely at the very beginning because we didn't know what we were up against. But now we do. And we know that the death rate is like very minimal. Your chance of dying from COVID is probably a whole lot less than your chance of being hit in a car accident and killed. I mean, that's just about what it is. So anyway, all the links are going to be down below, remember. And this one I just wanted to share with you because this was a poll. I know these polls are just polls and they're not really anything scientific or anything like that because you don't have any chance of, determining who's going to vote in it and who isn't. But I just thought this was pretty good. When the Anons found out about it, it was not this way. It was kind of flipped. So they came in and they flipped the poll. And when you read down here, there's a lot of Trump support down here. So very interesting. Yeah, make America great again. And it's funny because they keep putting these up. I've seen several of them. They put them up. They're not going the way they think they should have gone. So these people are like probably looking at it going, that's not what we expected. Well, I just wanted to point this out to you because evidently Alex Jones has fired this Millie Weaver, and that she knew she was going to be arrested, so she was faking it with the video and everything. And I don't know. He says that he's disavowing the stuff that's in the Shadowgate movie, but I know there are some things in the Shadowgate movie that are accurate. I know that. So I don't know if there are things that are not. I was highly suspicious of the woman, the whistleblower lady. She just seemed off to me, and I think a lot of people have been digging on her and finding that that's, more than true about her. So I don't think we should throw out the whole idea of Shadowgate, but he says he's going to take it off their site and everything. The deal is, I don't trust Alex Jones. So if you do, sorry about that, but I just don't. Because he kind of plays us, I think. And when Mr. 17 was talking about him, he referred to people like this as patriots, P-A-Y, triots, because they're really in it for the money, trying to get people all stoked up about stuff because they know then they can get money from them. So, I don't know. There's some good things that InfoWars has done. They've put out a lot of good information that otherwise would not have gotten out. But again, I take everything he says with a grain of salt. I don't trust him. And he talks all the time. You can't shut him up. So when he's trying to interview people, he does more talking than they do. That drives me nuts. Drives me nuts with Hannity too when he does that. Okay, how about this one? Tennessee governor signs bill increasing punishments for certain protests. So check this out. I think this is pretty good. I hate it when it does that. If you make a website with news on it, please don't do that to me. Okay, one of the reasons you're not getting very many videos from me is because of just that. My internet connection is going so stinking slow. And I mean, not just mine, but I checked other people in the area, and theirs is about the same. So I'm not real sure what's going on in our town, but, and then I had my mouse. I have a wireless mouse, and I lost the little plug-in thingy. So my mouse doesn't work. I had to get a cabled one, and it's not fun. So I'm hoping to get another one, but it just takes time and energy to get because I live in the middle of nowhere. So anyway, this guy, Tennessee Governor Bill Lee, quietly signed a bill into law ramping up punishments for certain kinds of protests, including losing the right to vote. So what happens is the new law stipulates that people who illegally camp on state property will face a Class E felony, punishable by up to 6 years in prison. People found guilty of a felony in Tennessee lose the right to vote. So, yeah, if you are guilty of a felony, you cannot vote in Tennessee. I think that's the same thing in Indiana. If you've been convicted of a felony, you can't vote here either. And so this is kind of what he's doing to get around it. And if they can't camp, illegally camping on state property, that's going to limit where they can and can't be, and especially camping, So you can read through this. Of course, the ACLU is not happy about it. They're all up in arms and boo-hoo, boo-hoo, boo-hoo. So I'll leave it down below. You can read it if you want to. Well, I thought this was really interesting from the American Spectator because it says more evidence that Trump's silent majority is real. And this has some polling information down here because they found out that conservatives don't like really telling who they're going to vote for because they're afraid they're going to be attacked or they're going to be, silenced in some way, lose their jobs or whatever the case is, which is very real. See, we've been saying that, but now we have an actual poll here that found out it's true. That moderates who self-censor increased 7 points from 57% to 64%, and the share of conservatives rose from 70 to 77%. You get that? These are the people that self-censor. That means you stop yourself from saying things because you know you're going to get backlash for it. That's a huge percentage, 70 to 77%. That's big. And this is the moderates right here, 57 to 64%. 64% of moderates and 77% of conservatives are afraid to say our political views because of what's going to happen to us if we do. Isn't that crazy? And so here it says, this is why those with left-leaning political views seem to dominate the political discourse. They are doing most of the talking while moderates and conservatives keep their own counsel and wait patiently for Election Day. Many Democrats mistakenly believe this illusory dominance of the public debate means they have won the hearts and minds of the electorate. As we saw in 2016, however, the reluctance of right-of-center voters to argue with puffed-up progressives simply meant they wanted to avoid shaming and social ostracism. They kept their peace until it really mattered when they reached the voting booth. That's the beauty of the secret ballot. People who decline to be bullied by strong liberals can make their voices heard loud and clear in November. According to the Cato survey, the number of people choosing this path is far larger than it was in 2016. So you can go through, you can look at this. It's got some statistics and stuff. Really interesting to find out, though. Yeah, now we have proof. And this is the post-millennial. Joe Biden accused of plagiarizing late Canadian politician Jack Layton in DNC speech. So he can't even do a speech without plagiarizing somebody. So yeah, they're saying this is what he said. Biden's words were, "For love is more powerful than hate, hope is more powerful than fear, and light is more powerful than dark." In his goodbye letter just before his death, Layton wrote the following: "My friends, love is better than anger, hope is better than fear, optimism is better than despair." So thought that was very interesting. By the way, if you haven't heard Joe Biden's speech, he really emphasized going from dark to light. thought that was a really interesting choice of words, especially, and I'll put this in the next video. I just had way too many tabs to put in this one. But in the next video, I'll show you where this organization that they have in memory of Beau Biden had to do with saving children and protecting children. And it had something to do with dark to light. So I'll show you that in the next one. Like I said, I had like 40 tabs open, literally 40. And so I'm kind of splitting it up here. And then, of course, you probably know that today, Friday, when I'm recording this, John Durham investigators interviewed John Brennan for 8 hours at CIA headquarters. Now, this article right here is from the Washington Times, but it says here that, this is what it says. The interview took place at CIA headquarters and lasted for 8 hours, said Nick Shapiro, Brennan's former deputy chief of staff and senior advisor. Keep that in mind. Any information we have about what went on there is purely from him. Okay? He has a really good reason to make it sound like John Brennan's just doing his civic duty by going in there and testifying what he knows. And so he goes on and he says, Brennan was informed by Mr. Durham that he is not a subject or a target of a criminal investigation. Remember who's saying this? Yeah, this Shapiro here is CIA Brennan's right-hand man, probably. I assume that's who he is. So he's the only one that's talking about it. Because as it goes down in here, it says somewhere that there was nobody from Durham would not speak on it. So this is the only thing we have. And so did Durham actually say that Brennan was not the subject or a target of criminal investigation? Did he actually say that? Or is Shapiro just putting that out in their statement? You know what I'm saying? So I can't believe that Brennan is not the subject of an investigation, but perhaps he's not the subject of Durham's investigation. Maybe there's another U.S. attorney that was tasked with looking into Brennan in the CIA and Brennan's little organization, you know, his business, TAC, and all the meddling that they did. So I really kind of wonder if that's just under a different purview. And remember, in my last video, we were talking about compartmentalized investigations. It could very well be that in Durham's purview, that Brennan is not under investigation. Okay. Or it could be that he's not yet. Or it could be Shapiro's lying. So we don't really know the truth. And it does say he appeared voluntarily for the interview. You know, I'm just not thinking it was voluntary because he really didn't have much of a choice. And of course, you know, he's going to go out to MSDNC and tell him everything. Oh, here it says, a spokesman for Durham declined to comment Friday. So, yeah, I'm kind of thinking that either Shapiro's lying or somebody else is investigating Brennan other than Durham. I'm not sure which. But speaking of investigations, okay, you've heard this. You know this happened. The We Build the Wall was a fundraiser trying to raise money when the Democrats were being so stupid about, you know, funding for the wall. And hey, I was one of them right here. I donated some. So I'm not sure about this. I read through this. I read through the indictment, and I'm going to give you the link to the indictment if you want to read it yourself. If the evidence they have is valid, then it does look bad. Okay. I can't say one way or the other. I think it's interesting timing because I believe Bannon was coming out with some kind of a movie, some kind of video or something that was going to be eye-opening. So, you know, we have to keep that in mind too. So I really don't know where to stand on this at this point. Like I said, I did read through the information in the indictment, and essentially it sounds to me like The big promise that they're focusing on here was they said that this Brian Coffage was the veteran who lost his legs, and he was fairly well known, and he was kind of running this according to how I perceived it. He was spearheading it, and that, he made statements several times that he was not going to take any type of salary or anything out of it, and that all of the money would go towards funding the wall. Now, I have to be honest, I didn't pay as much attention to all the updates and everything as I probably should have, because they started sending them all the time, and most of them went in my junk mail, and I just didn't dig them out. That happens. I hate it when people send so many updates that you just feel like you're smothered with all this information. So, I really didn't think much more about it. And when I'm looking through this, if this is true, it was very well thought out, actually, because they had to create some shell companies, and they basically were laundering money to get it to Brian Coffage, and the others took some too, of course. So I don't know. I really don't. And I'm just going to kind of let it play out a little bit, maybe. I just think the timing is kind of odd, and it's another chance for the people on the left to say, see, there's another person that Trump was around that's been indicted. But again, I'm in the position now where I've seen so many people I thought were good people turning out to not be good people. So if somebody turns out to be bad, it's like I'm not surprised anymore. I'm just not. So is it possible that they are guilty of this, and that their arrest shows how nonpartisan the DOJ is? Or are they being set up and framed by the people in that list that I showed you earlier that are in high positions in our government? So right now, I don't know, and I'm not going to take a side one way or the other. I've heard arguments on both sides, and I frankly just don't know where to stand on it. So like I said, I read all the way through this. If this is true, it's based a lot on, they seem to say that they do have documents to support these charges, like text messages. And some of the text messages I think would be very hard to imagine being anything other than what they're quoting them as. And if there are documentation, the legal documentation for setting up these companies, then that's going to be a problem too. So again, just don't know. If this is true, if the information in this document, in this indictment is true, which it passed a grand jury, so it probably is, then yeah, they are going to be in some deep doo. So I don't know. Just wanted to leave you with that, because frankly, folks, sometimes I just don't know. And I'm always happy to step back and let it play out a little bit more, because I don't have all the evidence. I mean, I hear what they have to say in this indictment, but I don't necessarily know, I haven't seen the evidence. I don't know how valid the evidence is, because, hey, these people are not below just putting out their own fabrications. You know that from Adam Schiff. So, don't know on this. I wish I could tell you more, but that's where I'm at right now. I think there's a suspicious timing issue on it, but other than that, if the indictment is true, then yeah, they were bad boys. So as I've been doing, I do want to give a shout out to a small channel, and this one's a very small channel, but he's got several videos here, and I watched a couple of them. He seems to have an interesting perspective on things, and so, maybe encourage him. He only has 18 subscribers, so go through, click the subscribe button, and then right here on the bell, you need to click the bell too and put it to all. And keep an eye on that, because sometimes YouTube likes to, undo that, and you don't get any of the information, you don't get any of the posts. So I don't know. The last one was 3 weeks ago, but it was pretty funny. 5 reasons why I don't wear a mask in public. I thought that was good. And so, again, I don't know these people that well, but I watched a couple videos. Sounded like he was good. So I'm just going to put him out there. Use your own judgment. Go through, watch a few videos, see if that's something that you like. And if so, then subscribe. Okay? So that's what I've got for you on this one. I want to thank you for stopping by. And I'll see y'all later.